We have lots to discuss here in today's video, including lots of offseason trade speculation around teams like Vancouver, Ottawa, as well as the Buffalo Sabres. Plus, we have a big update regarding a potential new CBA coming here soon. Nick Waugh of the Vegas Golden Knights had a hearing tonight for a vicious cross-check to the face against the Edmonton Oilers last night. Lots of other playoff action, some news around the league, including the signing, updates from the World Championships, and some other news in the coaching and GM vacancies around the NHL coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to discuss here in today's video. Let's start with the Stanley Cup playoffs. We have some updates as well as an update on the Nick Waugh situation with Vegas. Of course, last night was a very highly entertaining game between Edmonton and Vegas. The Oilers end up winning 5-4 in overtime. Again, as usual, Vegas scored the first goal, so the Oilers were considered a comeback from behind win, although they ended up having a tie game going to overtime. So it's not quite the same, but fact is they did trail during a game, and for some weird reason, it seems to be when they play their best hockey. But they had a 4-2 lead going into the third period. Vegas worked hard to get it tied up. Pietrangelo scored with, I think it was like 6-7 minutes left. With a tie game. Ends up going to overtime. And in the overtime session, we get a 5-minute major penalty on Vegas forward Nick Waugh after a vicious cross-check to the face. So obviously, Waugh gets a 5-minute major game misconduct. The Golden Knights managed to kill off the penalty, surprisingly enough. McDavid and Draisaitl do end up on a 2-on-1 later in the period to result in Leon Draisaitl getting the overtime game-winning goal. Of course, on that play, before the rush goes the other way, there is a play which involves Victor Arvidsson of the Edmonton Oilers and Braden McNabb of the Golden Knights, where Arvidsson kind of trips McNabb, can opener style, if you will, into the boards. No call. And I know Vegas fans are not happy about it. I know Mark Stone was not happy. He let the refs know pretty hard at the end of the game that was a blatant missed call on them. So at the end of the day, it is a missed call for sure. Edmonton gets the game-winning goal. They're up 2-0 now in the series. And, of course, we found out that this morning that Nick Waugh would be having a hearing, and it was going to be taking place tonight for that vicious cross-check to the face. To me, I expected at least a one-game suspension. We've seen other scenarios. Like last year in the playoffs, there was like McDavid, Myers. We've seen other cross-checks to the face. So earlier in round one, I can think of one, like I think it was Cole Caulfield, I believe it was. I got one. Or somebody in the Canadians, I remember, got a bad cross-check to the face. There was not only was there no penalty, but player safety did nothing. But usually when you have a hearing, like 99% of the time, it leads to a suspension. And it did not this time. We just got the news broke right before I was ready to record here. I thought I might just have to talk about the fact that the hearing was coming soon. But he's been fined and not suspended. Waugh avoids suspension here. The fine is $7,812.50, which they say is the maximum allowed under the CBA. I'd like to see how these fines work, because pretty much every time they fine somebody, it says it's the maximum under the CBA, but yet the amounts are always different. I'd really like to know and learn more about that part of the game when it comes to their fines. But yeah, Waugh avoids suspension. I thought for sure it'd be at least a one-gamer, especially where it came so late in the game in overtime. He's lucky. I really thought it could have been, but like as per usual, the Department of Player Safety is like spinning a wheel. You don't really know what you're going to get sometimes. So that is that. Of course, the other game last night was Washington against Carolina. Of course, the Caps take that game in 3-1 score, tie the series at 1 apiece. Tom Wilson had a dominant effort last night. It was really, really, really good. Logan Thompson had to be good as well. But the Capitals just certainly had a much better game and tie that one up. Tonight, of course, we get Toronto, Florida, because the Leafs are in Sunrise trying to take a 3-0 series lead. As I record this video, it's in the second intermission, and the Panthers are winning 4-3. So we'll see if they can hang on here. The Leafs did have a 2-0 lead and a 3-1 lead at one point, and the Panthers have battled their way back in to take a 4-3 lead. Some interesting calls. I know there's some penalties that there's not calls and non-calls again tonight that I don't agree with. The officiating throughout these entire playoffs for all teams has been wildly inconsistent, in my opinion. And I would really like to see the league do something about it. The other game that goes a little bit later is Winnipeg against Dallas. In Game 2, the Jets trying to tie that series up. But one apiece if they can before the series shifts to Dallas in a few days' time. A bunch of other updates around the league here. We'll start with the Buffalo Sabres today announcing that they've hired Brian Gallivan, who's going to be hired with the title of Director of Performance. So it's a new title they kind of made up here. He comes from USA Hockey, where he's worked for the previous 6 years, and his title there was Director of Sports Science. Essentially, his task and his main role is to upgrade the strength and conditioning program. So he's really going to be focusing on that, even though I'm not sure why they give him a title of Director of Performance, but yeah, he's a well-respected guy with lots of experience. It comes from the USA Hockey program. So the Sabres, like I said, will continue to probably make additional changes, not only to their front office, but to other aspects of their support staff to try to make this team better for next year. Another update as well on the Sabres, who are rumored to be adding another front office member, whether it be a president of hockey operations or a senior advisor to work with Kevin Adams. I know we've heard the name of Ken Holland for the Islanders and the Sabres, and to be honest, it sounds like he's not going to be going to either one. It seems like his interest right now is mostly towards the Los Angeles Kings job opening. But yeah, the Sabres did have interest in him, and same thing, apparently they also had interest in Lou Lamoriello. They did reach out to speak to him, but there was no interest there. With the Islanders, we're hearing that there's a possibility that Lou might stay, and I think some Islander fans are losing their minds, rightfully so. They've been, wanting change so badly there, and it's not that he's going to stay as GM. That won't be the case if he does stay, but depending on what they do, I think the Islanders have had a hard time with some of their more experienced senior guys that they've been trying to bring in as a president. And if they have to end up hiring a younger GM, that they may bring Lou and maybe his son Chris back as well to be the support people to help, advise. I don't know. That's just, to me, would be really awkward. But it apparently is something that's being considered right now, but I don't know what the story with the Islanders seems to be ever changing. Did see another update from, I think it was Dave Pagnotis, saying today that even though he wasn't getting a lot of attention early on, and maybe Jarmo Kekalainen might be in the mix after all. Mark Bergevin's name has been out there, but it's an ever-changing story, it seems like, when it comes to the Islanders and the Sabres. We don't want to bring in somebody, but again, besides the names that we had heard, I'm not really sure who else they're currently talking to. In Vancouver, another name to watch when it comes to their vacant head coaching position would be Marco Sturm, of course, former NHL player, currently coaching in the Sharks American Hockey League affiliate, somebody who's been wanting more of an NHL opportunity for a while. Thought he might get it with the Sharks when they hired Warsofsky, didn't get that one. Apparently Boston is also a team that's got him on their radar here as well. Of course, he does have history with the Bruins, played there for 5 or 6 years. He was involved in the Joe Thornton trade way back in the day. So an up-and-coming coach has been wanting to get that opportunity, and he is involved in the mix for both clubs. So we'll see. Team Canada today announced their leadership group and captains for the World Championships. Of course, today was the opening day for Worlds. I know Canada does not play until tomorrow, but USA played today, and they had a 5-1 win today as well. Canada's captains are, of course, no big surprise, Sidney Crosby. He'll always be captain of Canada, I think, until he retires. Getting the A's is Nathan McKinnon and Ryan O'Reilly. This Canadian team does seem to be very, very deep, and one of the better teams they've had at this tournament in a long time. So it's going to be curious to see, of course, how they perform. Lots of other high-end talent for other teams showing up to this tournament too. I think with the Olympics being a year away, a lot of these guys are hoping to make the Olympic teams and want to get some more international experience under their belt as well, while answering a call for their country kind of at the same time. Now, like I said, there's also some chatter around the CBA and whether or not we could be getting a new CBA extension sooner than we had thought or hoped for. And this comes from a variety of reporters. I know I saw updates from Andy Strickland and even Chris Johnson as well, with Gary Bettman talking a little bit to the media today and indicating that the feeling is that we may get a CBA extension announcement as early as the Stanley Cup final sometime in the month of June. Of course, we know Bettman and Daly, they usually do like a State of the Union type of address when the Stanley Cup final begins. We usually get a lot of business updates around that time, and this could be a massive one if that's the case. Having an extended period of time that we've already had now, and then if they can, do a 4, 5, 6 year extension or whatever it's going to be, to continue that labor piece would be great for the game, just to give it that much more stability. We know that it seems like the union and the owners are more in sync and have a better relationship now than just what they ever really had. Things are in a good place that way. So again, that's a big update that could have a major impact on things, like I said, just to give the game lots of stability. And I'd be curious, of course, to see what the terms are for that CBA and how it's going to impact the players and all that moving forward. Now, as I mentioned, a few offseason trade speculations. Let's start with an article on the Ottawa Senators. This comes from Sportsnet and Alex Adams. Basically looking at some options on what they expect General Manager Steve Staios to do this offseason. As Alex puts in his article, a couple of things that they're going to be looking at is one of those largely going to depend on the health of Nick Jensen, because we don't know the full extent of the injury. Does he need surgery? How much time is of recovery? There's a lot of uncertainties around just how long he's going to be dealing with this, and is he going to be ready for next year or whatnot, right? So obviously they have Zub, they have Matt and Powell that just re-signed, but that leaves a big hole if Jensen's going to, let's say they get a bad update that he's going to miss a significant portion of next year. Well, obviously they need to go out and try to find somebody. So this article talks about, do they target a top 4 defenseman? Is it more likely that they target a top 6 forward? How do they enhance this team? Because they do have some cap space to look after their internal business and probably add at least one UFA from the market or trade and see what they can do. A couple of options they look at in the defenseman target here, and this one, the article gives the feeling that it might have to be more of a priority, because obviously they'll know more about Jensen before they get to this period when this activity would kind of pick up anyways. But one, it looks like on the UFA market, and it's not even certain he's going to be available yet, but the right shot defenseman, and the main one that would be of interest, would be Aaron Ekblad. Now, of course, Ekblad's currently with the Florida Panthers, former first overall pick, played his full career there. I know there's definitely interest for him to stay where he's at. Whether or not they're going to be able to keep him, I don't know. There was some talk last offseason that he was a player they considered moving, because obviously they had some cap casualties. The Panthers are going to be in a similar spot. I know that Sam Bennett is a key UFA for them as well. And, if they had to pick Bennett and Ekblad, I think they might lean towards getting Bennett done, and Ekblad may be the guy to walk. We had also heard at one point he might be willing to take Aaron Ekblad at a significant discount to stay. So, again, no guarantees he's even going to be available, but, clearly he's somebody who's very battle-tested, lots of experience. I don't know if he's as defensively strong as some of the other guys that the Sens already have, but he is kind of known for being a pretty strong two-way defender. So we'll see if he becomes a target or not, because you don't even know for sure if he's going to be on the open market. Another name this article suggests that might be more reasonable is Rasmus Andersson out of Calgary. Now, I've said before, I know Rasmus Andersson seems to really like it in Calgary. I'm not so certain that he's going to be re-signed and end up staying there. Not that they don't like the guy, but if you look at their blue line, how things are constructed, who's already signed long-term, does it really make sense to sign him on a long-term extension? He's got a really good contract right now for another year. So for any team, if they do trade for him, whether it be Ottawa or somebody else, that would be a phenomenal deal for one more season. And then, of course, he's going to be looking for a fairly significant raise, and he could be a good partner for whether it be a Thomas Chabot or a Jake Sanderson. So clearly, those are the top 2 names, be either one through free agency, one through trade, that it's believed that Staios is going to at least check into. Doesn't mean he's going to get either one. Not going to be easy, not going to be cheap, whether it's, like I said, a signing or a trade, but that is believed to be your top targets. Of course, the article also discusses how they may bring back Anton Forsberg, depending if he's willing to do a short enough contract, or he may have more lucrative options on the free agent market, because the goalie UFA market is not overly deep. So hard to say on that front. And as far as top 6 forwards, it referenced maybe Nick Ehlers in Winnipeg, who's needs a new contract and will be a UFA if he's not signed by Winnipeg. Could be a prime target. If they're going to add anybody in the forward group in the top 6 or top 3 lines. To me, it's got to be a guy with speed. There was some talk about Brock Besser maybe being a target. He's not expected to stay and re-sign in Vancouver. Of course, Travis Green was his former coach, so be a lot of familiarity there. And I like Besser, he's a good goal scorer, but he's not overly fast, not overly great defensively. I just think they already have enough players like that. I think if you watch the playoff games against the Leafs, to me, that they could definitely need some more speed. So we'll see what happens, but that's kind of where Ottawa's at right now. Bo Byram, a big update on him. We talked before in the last few days that it's expected sounds like from what we've heard out of Buffalo that he's expecting to be traded this offseason. And today we get confirmation that he's changed agents. He's now repped by Cortex Hockey. So when you see a player change agencies, I mean, it can mean a variety of things, and not always a big deal, but it's usually that you need a new contract or you're looking for a trade. Sometimes it's both, and that could very well be the case with Byram. So I think it just kind of lines up well seeing this news to go along with what we've heard out of Buffalo already, that he's most likely going to find himself on the move. But again, we don't know. Like, the Sabres are going to probably be looking to do a variety of things. To me, they need a more ideal partner to play in the top 4, maybe with Owen Power too. So I'm not sure what they do with Byram, but I do expect him to be moved at this point. This is just another sign that it's trending in that direction. And some very interesting comments from Canuck GM Patrick Alvin on the older situation that's already been dealt with between Miller and Pettersson, but it really makes me wonder if they really will consider trading Pettersson this offseason. Now, this was a season ticket holder event where Alvin was talking directly, privately to season ticket holders. Someone took a video of it and shared it through social media, so it was kind of caught fire here. But essentially, when he was asked about how difficult it was for the team to navigate through the Miller and Pettersson situation, and he certainly didn't say a whole lot that was new, but a couple things that really makes you wonder how this was handled. Because he says that essentially the Pettersson-Miller thing wasn't new. It's not like it just came up this past year. It's something that been festering for multiple seasons. Ultimately, the year before, the team was winning. The team was having a lot of success, and kind of made it sound like because the success was there, that it was easier to deal with, and it wasn't such a big thing. It didn't seem to rear its ugly head as much that year. But like I said, it's one of those cases to me. It sure sounds like you hear it a lot in sports. Winning solves everything. People put aside their differences. Things are happier. Things are not as tense. And it seems to be, a more happy environment. But then he goes on to say that, coming into this year, things obviously didn't, have that same kind of start. The level of success wasn't there. And then, of course, JT Miller, he says, comes in as a 32-year-old, somebody who knows that the year before and, was a great level of success, and that it's, not he doesn't know how many kicks at the can he's going to have to win a cup, right? He probably understands that more than some of the players in their earlier 20s, for example. He's been around longer. He knows how hard it is in the playoffs. And it's just that simple, right? So he comes in super prepared, willing to, ready to build off of the season before. And unfortunately, things weren't going well. So I think that kind of brought up a lot of these issues again, saying that he also says that a lot of the younger players came in not nearly as prepared to the level of Miller was. And it kind of seemed like it caused some rifts. He said it wasn't just a Miller-Pettersson thing. It kind of bled out to the rest of the team, and it kind of sounds like there was almost two sides. And I kind of wonder if it was more of a case of like some of the vets versus some of the younger guys, because like where he says some of the younger guys, weren't as prepared, thought it might be a lot easier to win and to get back to the playoffs and all that. And I just think it was really pissing JT Miller off. So watching these guys come in and doing their business this way and not being ready and not putting into work when he's trying to win. So ultimately, that kind of rift is what led him to taking a leave of absence. He comes back. It doesn't really, change a whole lot. And the end solution to this issue ends up being that he has to leave the team. And as Alvin says, they want to support all their players. But after the leave of absence, that's kind of what all led to it. And then from there, like I said, he comes back. It's not getting better. And JT kind of says, as much as he said it was emotional, he didn't really want to leave, but thought it was the best thing for himself and his family and the Canucks if he just moved on. it really makes you wonder, everything you've heard from management and what they've said about, Pettersson and his training, and they've kind of been hard on him. So about how he prepares, his lack of training, lack of intensity, whatever you want to call it. But yet then they move Miller. Like, are they really convinced they can win with this guy? I'm not entirely convinced that they wouldn't necessarily consider a trade this offseason. It just sure doesn't sound like they have that much confidence in him. And that is he really going to do everything that they want him to do? I don't know. That Canucks team just seems to be in such a different situation. And knowing everything they know now as well about Quinn Hughes and the fact that they could be at risk of losing him over the next year plus. Like, do they trade Pettersson and get what they can? Do they end up having to move Hughes? And do they just kind of just accept the fate here and then kind of go at this in a different way? It makes you wonder. It just makes me wonder, hearing the comments that the younger guys kind of took for granted how easy it was going to be and just come in unprepared. I don't know. To me, it doesn't necessarily sound like JT Miller was that bad. Now, he could have crossed the line. He could have done things, went too far and all that. But yeah, I don't know. It just sounds like a very dramatic situation that could have been avoided if everybody was kind of pulling their weight more and being more prepared and kind of all pulling together. And that wasn't the case this year. But I wonder what more they'll do with this roster now that they've kind of spilled a little bit more about the history. Because even though whether we know that stuff or not, publicly, it's certainly going to impact their decisions on how they move forward. So let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors in the comments. We'll talk about it further if you're new to the channel. Of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.